Hi, hello, and welcome to Life Off Script. My name is Yaz, and I am back with a new episode. Today, we are talking about the summer I turned pretty. I want to do a deep dive or just like a discussion. Well, actually, not a discussion because I haven't brought anyone on this podcast. So it's going to be a monologue of me thinking about this show and the depth of it and the reason it's had such a trajectory and become so mainstream for everyone. I think there's a lot to be said about this show for sure. And I want to say that I've only jumped on the bandwagon literally 2 months ago, not even 1 month ago. Um, and I know that it was first released in 2022, I believe. So I am very, very late to the party, but I am at the party, guys. So let's just acknowledge that, okay? But I just have some things to say about it because I think this show has such a massive fan base and there's a reason for it, right? There's a reason there's so many people that are obsessed with it and are obsessed with the dynamics between the three main characters. And also the side characters. They all have a part to play. They're all quite 3D in terms of their character development, which is interesting. Originally, a book, or three books actually, by Jenny Han, who actually made To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which was such a great movie. So we follow Isabel, who goes by the name Belly. I have issues with that name. Call yourself Bella or Belle. What is Belly? It's an insane nickname. But anyway, Conklin, and every summer she, her mum Laurel, and her older brother Stephen head to Cousins Beach to stay with their family friends, which is like Laurel's best friend Susanna, and then her two sons Conrad and Jeremiah. Okay, so Susanna is loaded, and they have the most gorgeous, insane mansion fucking house on the beach. It's actually incredible. And so usually she comes in and she's like the only girl and no one really notices her, but she's had a big, fat, massive, mega crush on Conrad since she was like a little baby. And so then this summer, which is season one, is like the summer where she looks a bit more like an adult and less like a kid, basically. Uh, and they notice her, but it's actually really, really fleshed out and quite interesting. And you know what I love about it as well is that they flesh out the female characters. And so you get, for instance, Laurel, her mum, Susanna, the boys' mum, and their dynamic and their friendship and how they feel about everything. I'm not going to obviously get too far into it, but it gives life to the females, which you honestly do not see on screen that much. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't. Usually it's like two mums that your besties from college move on, like whatever. No, no, no. This like went into real depth, which I really appreciated and enjoyed. That represents such a good female friendship, and I love to see it on screen. The script writing, whilst cringe, has depth and that actually can't be overlooked, despite what critics might say. And it was so funny. I didn't actually realize she was the one that wrote and directed The Summer I Turned Pretty and the To All the Boys I Loved Before until like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh my God, the color choices and the color palette of To All the Boys I've Loved Before was so beautiful and so aesthetic. I remember it vividly because it was all over Tumblr at the time. Everyone was obsessed with making 6 gallery shots of quotes of those scenes, and that was with that guy. I think his name's Peter something in the show, in the movie, and before all the controversy. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna rehash it here, but I remember it being on Tumblr and stuff, and I loved it. I thought it was such a great movie, and it was so funny and like quirky and just artsy. I just really liked it. So I'm not surprised at all that I actually kind of clicked that The Summer I Turned Pretty would have the same effect on me. Funnily enough, I did actually try and watch it. It would have been 2023, but what I did was skip the scenes to Jeremiah, just to see what their dynamic was, and then I didn't like the dynamic but I had no context about what anything was happening. And so then I quit the show. So I watched like 20 minutes of like 2 episodes. Bit bizarre of me actually, because in the end I just watched it properly and it was great. But to be fair, the episodes at the very beginning, the initial episodes, are extremely cringe. Actually, in general, it's a cringe show. But I think the reason it works is because people actually love cringe. When I started it with my housemate Till, we watched it together and there was something fun and funny about watching something so cringe together, where we could just be like, that would never happen in real life, or like, why did they react like that? Or that's such a weird thing to say. It's also just like meant to be cringe, because when a show acts too cool, it doesn't grip the audience as much, especially young girls, like young women. I mean, to be fair, it's gripped me and I'm in my late 20s, so take that with a grain of salt, but it's gripped us regardless. And it's because we like cringe. We like cringy stuff. If you think about Taylor Swift, obviously Taylor Swift's music is in pretty much, it permeates throughout all the seasons. I think we've heard it. Have we heard it already in season 3? Maybe not actually season 3, but we've heard it. And, I love Taylor Swift so much, but she's very cringy sometimes. But like, everyone gets around it. I think there's something like, it's almost like the cringe, like people just slowly start to like acclimatize and then they're just like, actually, it's a vibe, because it's just showing that like it knows what it wants to be. It's not trying to be cool or like nonchalant. I don't know. Another thing that makes it so popular is obviously the dynamic between the 3 main characters. So Jeremiah, Bally, Conrad. In the first season, I will say I feel like the first season was so, it had its own vibe to it. Like I think season 2 and 3 are definitely like, darker and more emotional, and there's a lot more depth to it. But the first season feels a lot like Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter. Like, it's just its own type of energy that is so distinctly different from the rest of the movies in the series. So I feel that with season 1. Season 1 is so good because all the characters act really young. Even Conrad. I think Conrad acts quite young. But Bally, I know some people say the acting is diabolical, but if you think about it, I feel like the acting is actually quite on par with like their ages. I think sometimes people forget that like they are quite young. Like Ellie in the first season is what, 16? Like I was acting like an actual fool when I was 16. I was being so silly and so just outlandish and just being so hard eyes to any of the guys that I had crushes on. Like I just feel like she captured that essence of like whimsical 16-year-old kiddish, childish behavior that I feel like I'd kind of connect with her, because I'm like, that's exactly how I acted when I was 16. And by God, if I had 2 hot men chasing after me, I would be so happy. So throughout the seasons, a lot of people have like issues with Belly, and I can see why. Like I do feel like there are like definite choices she makes that I'm like, they're not the right choices I would make. But again, she's really young. I think in season 2, she's what, 17 or 18? She's young. I don't even think my brain knew what was happening when I was 17. I don't even remember 17, to be fair. I just think the miscommunication trope between her and Conrad throughout, I feel like not only is it reflective of their age, Bally is thinking about herself and not picking up clues and inferences of Conrad's behavior throughout. His emotional capacity is obviously at a very low point because all he thinks about is Susanna. But she doesn't pick up on it, because why would she? Does she have like social nuance at that age? Not really. She's still a child. And similarly, Conrad's a bit older, but he's still young. by any means. And, he has a lot of choices that he makes that I just think not the right choices, or, he could have spoken up or done something else. But at the end of the day, he's young, he's sad. When you're sad and you're young, you just lash out, you just say dumb shit, and you shut down. So I think both of their behaviors and actions throughout the season is completely reflective of their ages, and I think and what they were dealing with at the time. So I have a real soft spot for Belly, like genuinely have a soft spot for her. And even in season 3, her being so, I guess, enraptured with Jeremiah is really interesting to see. And I also think it makes sense. Like, all the things she does, she'll say, "No, I don't want to do that, Jeremiah." Jeremiah will sulk, the classic, "Oh, well, poor me." And then she'll be like, "Oh, no, no, that's fine. Actually, I can deal with that. We can do that." And she's slowly losing herself in the dynamic and slowly giving up parts of herself that maybe disagreed from Jeremiah's perspective to keep the dynamic fun, happy, and easy. Except it's not really easy, because at every point that they have an issue, she's the one that gives up to him. So she's giving away all this energy. She's giving up a lot of herself to make the relationship as easy as she keeps saying it is. And that's okay, because again, how else is she supposed to know? It's like throughout a time where she's trying to figure her own self out. She's really lost identity wise. And she kind of clings to Jeremiah because Jeremiah also clings to her. So they kind of have this weird like codependency. I also think, if we love anything about shows, it's love triangles. My God, was I obsessed with The Vampire Diaries, Stefan, Damon, and Elena. Wow, wow, wow. I have watched that show so many times. And not only does it work in that setting, because they're also brothers, so it's actually quite mirrored. So I think maybe I'm adjusted to it because of the Elena and Stefan and Damon situation. But there's something that is so good to watch on screen when there's two close friends yearning and fighting for the attention of one female. I don't know why. I think we just like to see that on screen. We saw that with Gossip Girl as well. Blair, if you remember, Chuck, obviously Endgame, we all know that. But Chuck and Dan were at one point fighting for Blair's hand in marriage, basically. And similarly, in all of those, or Twilight as well, but I'm not going to talk about Twilight because I haven't watched it in yonks. But similarly, in all of those, I would argue that the person that she's with for the time that she's with always makes sense for the plot or the character growth of that person. So, for instance, I was actually team Jeremiah. I was team I wasn't really team anyone in season 1 because I was like, they're both a bit whack. Like, Jeremiah's just suddenly coming out of nowhere and saying that he has always liked Belly, and I'm like, I call bullshit, never picked that up before. And Conrad was just dealing with a lot of shit, and I was like, he's not good for her at this point in time. But of course, she ends up with Conrad season 1. Sorry, spoilers. And then season 2, you're seeing those flashbacks, and like, it was good for a time, but he couldn't handle his mum's death, obviously tragic. And he shut down and kicked and like what he said in season 3, teed it up for Belly to be like, this ain't working. And then she went to Jeremiah, and I was low-key team Jeremiah from mid to end of season 2. And it's because she needed someone that would actually speak to her and would actually give her words of affirmation, which is clearly one of her love languages, and give her that reassurance that she needed at that time. Conrad needs to work on himself, like, period. Yes, season 2 is like, oh my God, why is she with Jeremiah? But if you think about her as a person and like what Conrad was doing and saying to her, he was just not there. He was dissociating constantly. That man was genuinely on another planet for 90% of season 2. You can fight me on that, but he was. And he couldn't give Belly the attention she needed. And Jeremiah could. So I think Jeremiah was perfect for her at that stage of her life. And so then now we're obviously fast forward many, many years, and Belly and Jeremiah are still together. But it's almost like what I was saying before, they've lost themselves in each other, which is such an interesting thing to see on screen. And you can see it with a lot of things, like she doesn't have much monologue when she's with Jeremiah. Everything that they fight about, she kind of backs down and just gives in to him. And it's actually so interesting to see on screen because I don't think people see that very often. The way someone loses themselves. The concept is so, oh, well, I lost myself in my first relationship. But like, what does that actually mean? And for it to be translated onto screen is really interesting and quite important, I think. So I think it's really, really good. And it's not super direct either. It's not as direct and, in your face. It's quite subtle. And you can see it just by the difference in the scenes with her and Jeremiah and then her and Conrad. And I'm not saying Conrad's perfect. He's definitely a flawed human being, but he's taking steps to sort out his life. And you can see that. Whereas Jeremiah feels like he's a bit like cruising through life, which is fine, but it's giving a bit privileged white boy energy, Whereas Conrad's like, I'm choosing to do XYZ. I'm choosing to go to therapy for my own benefit. Although Conrad's ability or inability rather to communicate is like something that I have never seen before. It's so bad. In episode 5, which just came out literally last night for anyone, us in the UK anyway, him being like, oh, I need to take the car, like I'll give it to you after. And she's like, can I just come with you? I just need to grab some stuff from the shops. And he was like, I'll give it to you after the shops, just wait. And then she's like, I'm just gonna grab the bike. And then he literally had like the longest monologue in his head, debating obviously whether to just be like, yeah, fuck it, like, I'm in the car. But it was to the point where he stood there and then watched her get on the bike through the front door, watch her ride away. She's literally turning the corner out of the driveway. And then he opens the front door and goes, Belly. Not even, Belly, wait. Just shout and actually call for her name. He literally was like, Belly. And then he was like, wow, she didn't answer. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, act like a normal human being. Anyway, music-wise, the music is top tier. Also, another thing why it's so popular at the moment is because obviously the music is insane. Taylor Swift, all of season 1 with Olivia Rodrigo is going to capture all of our attention. I believe there's so many Taylor Swift songs out there that there's at least one for every sort of emotion or situation ever created ever. So that's great. But this season 3 has incredible bangers, and one of them being the Linger cover by Royal Otis, Hello, and obviously Harry Styles' Cherry, incredible work. On top of that is the color work, which I've been wanting to talk about. And I think the color work is so interesting and such an insightful thing to do for a show that's gotten as big as it has. And it's giving the fans interactive material, right? Why are we using that color? What does that represent? And it's giving film and media subject where they're like, okay, what do the dark shadows and the light represent in this Dark Knight Batman movie? Because Christopher Nolan used to do that all the time. And so obviously the amount of work that's gone into certain signs and clues and color coding of the show infer something. The colors being the golden, so the yellow, the red, loving him was red, and the blue being her favorite color is so interesting, and it makes for beautiful TV as well. It's never going to look ugly on screen. Like, everyone is gorgeous. I mean, Belly looks like a model sometimes. Jeremiah is just like he's, he's ungodly hot. He's unreal looking. And Conrad has a beautiful aura to him. And his hair is like debatable throughout the seasons. I like it, but this season I wish it was a bit less stringy personally. But that's also just my personal opinion. Um, but he is dressed beautifully. It's 90s rom com energy, and I'm loving it sick. I'm also loving the fact that the characters in the show are beautiful in their own way, but they don't look like replicas of each other. Too often we see so many rom-coms or characters that just seem like the same person. And I'm not saying Jeremiah's a very good actor. I don't think he is, but he gives a different performance to Conrad that's so distinctly Jeremiah that it really gives for good TV. Hang on, I've just got to answer a video call. Hello.
Oh my god, how is?
Oh my god, do you want to speak into the microphone?
Just call to say hey.
I'm just in the middle of doing an episode on The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Do you want me here? Because I'm like an expert.
Yeah, I'm just doing like one, just me rambling, but yeah, we'll have you on for another one, don't worry.
Well, can't wait to listen to it.
Can I call you back then? And I'll be finished soon actually.
I'm speed mega fast, you know, bored.
No, I feel you. I'll call you back in like 15 minutes.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Steven, which is Belly's older brother. Steven is incredibly hot this season. Season 3, the latest one that's come out. So it's coming out every week. So we've only gone up to 5 episodes. That's why I really wanted to do a little deep dive before we get into the last final episodes of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Steven looks like a K-pop star. He is so hot. What the actual fuck? He has beautiful hair. He's funny. He's smart. He's egotistic, but he knows it. He dresses well. Help me. Like, he's actually the hottest one out of all of them. Like, I don't know what any of you guys say. He's like, I'm down bad for Steven. Okay, Steven Conklin. I'd go for him. Give that boy more than, you know, Taylor. I love Taylor, but I'm like, I want a storyline out of Steven. Like, and right now, obviously, it's looking like they're teeing up for him to get with that girl. The nasty one. What's her name? Diane? Diane? Denise. At the office. Now, I have some thoughts on Denise. I want to like her, but at every point she's so nasty. You're mean because you want to flirt, but it's like it's actually so hard to watch. I get secondhand embarrassment because it's obvious that she likes Steven. Oh, anyway, and then on top of that, I don't know if you guys saw in one of the scenes, it was like episode 4, I think, and she was wearing heels and she had to go see Steven about something about the work. And I've never seen anyone walk in heels like that ever in my life. And it was so funny. I couldn't take the scene seriously because she was like clonking away on those heels. And I actually think it wasn't her character. Like, I don't think that was meant for her character. I think the actress couldn't walk in those, genuinely way too high for her, and she was like plonking like a little baby giraffe or something. Another note beyond this, I also went to read the books, but then I realized the books were written for a very young audience. As I was reading the writing, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna enjoy this that much. However, I listened to the audiobook, which was somewhat tolerable. I guess the people that are speaking, the people that are doing the audio is actually the main actors from the show. So Christopher Briney, I believe, and Lola Tongue. Anyway, uh, if you haven't watched it, I really think you should watch it because it's not just some silly teenage show. It kind of is marketed that way, but it's actually a brilliant show, brilliant characters. The acting's pretty well done across the board. I'd say it's quite consistent. Bar Jeremiah, I don't think he's a very good actor, but his looks make up for it tenfold. And I think you should try and catch up before the end of season 3 because season three's finale will be incredible and will draw a huge crowd and the vibes will be amazing. Right now, me and my friends are taking turns hosting every Wednesday to watch the show, which is such a nice like way of like getting to talk about it with your friends and like really debriefing on it. So I'm sure a lot of my friends will contact me after this episode drops and have some thoughts on and feelings about what I've said tonight, I'm sure, because a lot of my friends disagree with me. um, but I'm excited for Team Conrad. I think he's definitely endgame. He's had way better songs attached to his scenes. Also, he's had like 3 slow-mos and Jeremiah's had none. So, closing thoughts. This is your sign to watch. Let me know if you're Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah. You'll be back and forth, I think, which is actually the sign of a good show, to be fair. For instance, with Blair, yes, Chuck was endgame, but does that mean that Dan wasn't right for her during that time that she needed him? No, Dan was perfect for Blair at that time that she was with him. He literally gave her exactly what she needed, the confidence, the grounding reality, like the down to earth nature she needed was from Dan, and she got that, and then she went back to Chuck naturally. On that note, I'm going to release you from your shackles. I feel like what I've done is I've shackled you to my lounge room and I've just like berated you with about the summer I turned pretty, but you're released now. You can turn this off. Thank you for listening. As always, this is Life Off Script Pod. My name is Yaz. And if you could rate the show, comment on it, whatever, please do. That helps me immensely. You can find me on Instagram, Life Off Script Pod, and the same on TikTok. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.